are neurodiverse or who have neurodiverse friends or family should know about? So think the resources that you may have access to that we might not know exist out there.
So there's the Houston, Texas Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities, Commission on Disabilities. You can do a form online, and you can sign up to speak and give a speech for what you want to say. There's also the Hub Houston, like I said. There's so many great resources here in Houston. Like I said, the Monarch School, there's the Westview School. There's so many I can't name, but for example, I'm the commissioner right now on the Houston, Texas Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities. So that's a wonderful one.
I think I just remembered we're in that unit. As I walked in today, I said, Adam, we've met before. Where did that occur? And it was probably through that engagement. So it is a great resource, the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities. Talk to us a little bit more about the Hub Houston. I don't know enough about that resource. What do they offer? When should we engage with them? And yeah, share more about that.
Sure. So the Hub Houston, like I said, is a relationship-centered educational program. They take high schoolers and postgraduates and etc. They have four different programs now. They have Aspire Accessories, which does jewelry and handmade art, etc. And then they have a high school program, which is the high schoolers, and they can get their GED or diploma. And then they have Club Hub, which is more or less older adults for, I think it's like 25 and up or so, 24, 25 and up or something similar. Then also they do have the Life 101, so that includes job details. So they have a whole entire coach for jobs, getting jobs, resume writing, etc. So it's wonderful that a place like this would love to be involved with that. It's a wonderful organization, and Coach Russo, if you're listening, she started the Hub. She's been my coach, mentor, friend, etc., since 2001. She's just amazing. She's the executive director there. So
wonderful. Shout out for the coach. If we start to engage, we'll remember her name and be sure to give her some kudos. So if that sounds like, I just want to make sure that I'm interpreting this correctly too. That sounds like if we had someone that we felt like would benefit from those resources, we could make a recommendation, we could help them look online to connect maybe with the Hub. There's an application process, I'm assuming, and that helps them get on their journey with the different programs?
That's correct, there's an admissions process. So you just go onto the website, it's thehubhouston.org, so thehubhouston.org.
Excellent, thank you. I know somebody's taking notes for me so that I can refer to those later too. Has anyone in the room ever referred or made a recommendation to the Hub, or anyone online either? I encourage you to use the chat because we're monitoring that. Okay, no, the heads are shaking, no, not so much. Okay, so I love that. That means we're bringing something, you are bringing something new to our teams so that we can consider that in the future, for sure. Okay, wonderful. Talk about the Monarch School. That was another resource that you just listed. Where would we think about engaging with the Monarch School?
Sure, so the Monarch School mainly deals with from childhood up to adults and past. They have so many different programs. And the Monarch School, so I'll give you a little story. Back when I was there, so my hands shake. I think some of y'all can tell. It's from Tourette syndrome, Tourette's. And so back when I was there, I had a great woodworking teacher. And so I asked him if I could get on a saw that made very, very precise lines. And back then, I didn't have any treatment for my shakiness. I have shakiness in my hands from Tourette's, from being on a lot of high dose antipsychotic medications for a long time, which I'm off and down of now, a lot of them. But he said, yeah, let's give it a try. And so this saw could basically, do some damage. But, which it did not. But
yes, that's good news.
It did not, but I made very nice, flowers for my mom and very cool things, But my hands, the point is my hands stopped shaking altogether, which is amazing. So the Monarch School gives resources such as, they have a, elementary program, they have a, lots of different programs. They have a kitchen, they have a store, etc. So, really cool programs there, so.
Excellent, so good practice, training, opportunities within that school. Now, I've definitely heard of the Monarch School. Anybody heard of it? Referred anyone there? Seeing some head nods on this one. All right, great. Still new information for a lot of folks in the room too, but, so we also have therapists, because here is a rehab hospital, right? So there are a lot of therapists in the room that might be listening as well. When you talked about your hands stopped shaking when you were doing that particular task, I think probably some people lit up, because I did it well in my brain also, with the reality that certain tasks and functions are different, and your brain processes that differently, and so it's just really interesting to hear your experience on that.
Yeah, and going back to that, so even to this day, I work at Walmart, like I said, and if you see me struggling at my store, for example, for glass items or different things like that, just help me out, that's all I ask. Sometimes, sometimes I can do it, sometimes I can't. But that's all I just ask, Customers are really awesome at my store. I have really, really great customers. Like I said, I made 10 years just recently. And, so if you see me struggling or whatever not, it's okay. So, or if you see someone else struggling, someone with autism or Down syndrome, etc., don't be, hey, move along, or etc., no, hey, hurry up, etc. Just give them time to process it, So, kindness and generosity and smiling is contagious, like I said, and, give someone a hug, whether it be a friend or family member or anyone in general, because hugs are contagious as well. A hug can change someone's life, or a hug can change someone's day forever, so.
Appreciate that, and congratulations on the 10 years, that's amazing.
Thank you.
Can you describe, so because everybody is different, right? Can you describe the best way to approach you maybe if you are struggling and that somebody maybe wants to help, or what you know about approaching other people too? Because I think sometimes that's a challenge for folks, when they don't know how to approach, and then they're nervous, and then we stop and overthink it, and we're like, should I ask, or should I just start doing? What has worked for you, and what do you see working with other people?
Sure, so I see a lot of times folks just like get in a hurry. I just say, life is easy, so just calm down, etc., don't be in such a hurry. Okay, it's okay to slow down in life, right? So if you see someone like, for example, today, my father and I were on the way here, this car was zooming in and out of people, almost have crashed. He almost crashed into us. It's like, really? So take it easy, If you're on your way to work or somewhere or at work, just take a deep breath, and just, I take it one customer at a time. And my manager said the other day, Adam, I need you to do the surveys on the back of the receipt, the survey on the back of the receipt. Because I got 2 surveys that had my name on it the other day. That's a good thing. That if you get a survey, that's a really good thing, good compliments and everything. So, like I said, just slow down, think about it, take a deep breath, and it'll all be okay, right? So, yeah, if you see someone struggling, like for example, just anyone in general, say, hey, I can wait. Yeah, so.
I like that approach very much. The deep breaths are helpful for all of us. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the workplace, because that's one of the things that AIDE is focused on, is really how do we help empower employees with disabilities to be, their full selves in their work experience, and also how do we help maybe folks that don't have disability in the workplace be able, as employees and leaders, be able to support everybody effectively. So from your perspective, what kinds of things do you think employers and coworkers, your friends, we call them the tier family, of course, but the people that surround you in work at Walmart, what can they do to make it a more inclusive experience for you or for everybody that's there?
So, in general, we all need to be more inclusive, I think. Whether it be making wheelchairs more accessible for people in wheelchairs, right? Or for individuals that can't hear or whatever, or for me, right? So not only do I have autism, I have Tourette syndrome and all the XYZs and ABCs, I'm just kidding, all the underlying conditions. But I have scoliosis in my back, right? So I have that since age 18. So scoliosis is curvature of the spine. And so, like I said, I have to take some frequent breaks at work. It's very difficult these days because you have to go through a company called Sedgwick, and to get any type of accommodation, whether it be like if you're off for 3 days or more at a time, or have to, it's difficult. So if they can make that process more easier, So let's say I have strep throat, right, and I have to go out for 3 days at a time, 3 days at in a row at a time. I have to go through Sedgwick, and I have to call them and then call outs and yada yada yada. It's really difficult because the Sedgwick process is not reliable and it's not. Let's just say it's not very helpful. But there's one company literally in the whole United States, I think, that deals with this. That includes like LOA, ILOA, pregnancy related, COVID related, etc. And that's the one company for every single large company. So, but yeah, so.
We do also use Sedgwick. They are, full disclosure. And it's a work in progress, there's a reason that it's a third party to protect our employees too, right, to protect our teams. And still, we want that inclusive environment, and I think as leaders, sometimes we really wanna know what we can be doing to support somebody that maybe does have accommodations through Sedgwick and communicate on that. So that's definitely in our AIDE engagement group wheelhouse to try to help tackle and decrease the barriers that maybe people perceive with that process. So I really appreciate that also. Have you had experiences, Adam, where maybe you wish someone had been a better ally for you? And what would you have recommended to them, or what did you recommend to them maybe that they could have done differently in the experience?
Sure, so I had a team lead or a manager at one point in time, kind of like below assistant manager, but right above me. She, let's just say that she was very rude all the time, and didn't understand any of us. She was rude with every single customer, and like whenever I tried to go on a break, she said no. And when I came into work and said hello, how you doing? She just ignored me and said go to this register. So, I thought she could have been better by, saying, hey, how you doing? Good morning. When I said, hey, good morning, well, give me at least something, But she ended up people let go and et cetera, I think, so. But she was just, a rude person, I guess. So, but it ends up, I guess, that she'll maybe learn from her mistakes and maybe you get better at it. Hopefully so.
We all encounter sometimes that lack of kindness in each interaction, so I can appreciate that for sure. Is there anyone who maybe didn't understand your some of the things that you need? That maybe it's slow, whether it's you or someone else that you're working with, maybe they didn't understand that going slower would be helpful, or how to help best. Did you have to encounter that, or need to advocate for yourself or advocate for somebody else in any circumstances?
Yeah, so we have an associate or employee at my job who also has autism. And so he's a little bit lower functioning than I am. So I always say, hey, how you doing? Do you need some help with this, that, the other? He likes to be on his personal phone sometimes. So you gotta put that away and focus on the work phone. So I always advocate for him because I don't want him to lose his job either, so. Well, I always say, hey, that way, I'm not crazy. He always opens up the self-checkouts. We have the work phone for that, and we have to check the items and customers, et cetera, make sure they're not stealing, so, so I like to advocate for him and say, hey, don't do that, so. Yeah.
So you see those opportunities as a way for you to say, give him tips and tricks maybe, to help keep him in good standing if he's forgiving, or whatever the case may be.
Exactly.
Okay. Excellent, thank you. How can organizations move beyond just accommodating disabilities? So I'm gonna use different words a little bit, like sort of doing just enough to make it an accessible environment, to truly valuing the unique strengths that everyone brings. I need to think about that as you're, yourself in that situation. So beyond accommodating and really including you.
So in general, I think beyond accommodating would be like including, right? So including everyone, including the customers, including all of us, right? So instead of like, I'm just gonna give a general example. So, if we were all included in this world, what would it be like? It'd be so much better, right? So let's say, for example, this room right here, right? If we were not, if half of us were half of us, well, we're half split here, right? Halfway, right? So if this side of the room was included, and this side of the room was included, how would we feel? We would feel really good, right? But if we're all included, we feel really great, right? So I think that's the main point, feeling included and inclusive. So inclusive workplace and inclusive employers are much better than non-inclusive workplaces and non-inclusive employers. So, so I think that's what matters. If you can find an inclusive employer and an inclusive workplace, that is so much better. So for example, my store manager has gone above and beyond to help me with my accommodations and my job and so on and so forth. So, which I really love. So.
No, but I think that's pretty significant. Sometimes we've talked about this aspect of really treating everyone as their individual self, obviously, and what everyone wants to be successful in the workplace. So what does that take for you, Adam? What does it take for me? Everyone is going to have a different need, perhaps, but that framing to me takes it away a little bit from being about your diagnosis, like you were talking about earlier, your disability, and it takes it into like, what just is beneficial for me to be my best self. And everybody should have a custom journey perhaps in that. And then I think the other aspect that can come up is, it is the employer, team leader, whatever the role is, are we seeking feedback from you? Are we being exclusive and only seeking feedback from certain parts of our teams? What does that look like? So, I'm thinking through how we apply this at Memorial Hermann. I think that would be our goal, that we're not excluding certain groups of individuals, and how to make sure we're reaching, and sometimes we have to be intentional on that and really reach everyone, so that we don't exclude accidentally or because of bias or other reasons. Okay, how do you have a great message. We've already heard so much of it, that how do you hope your message is going to influence more communities, more workplaces? What do you want everybody that's in this room and on Zoom, they're gonna go away from this conversation with something in their minds. What do you want them to take with them?
That's a great question. I want you all to take away that it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be laughed. It's okay to laugh. It's okay to have joy, and it's okay to smile, and it's also okay to be down occasionally, right? But if you feel down or sad, ask someone for help. Ask someone to cheer you up, right? So laugh a little more, right? Do not sweat the small stuff, okay? Laugh a little more, haha. Okay.
Isn't there like a laughter yoga or something like that we had a little episode of one time? Yes, laughter is helpful. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good. But just, if everyone can just, have a good time, and like I said, laughter is the best medicine, and thank you. So.
Thank you for that. What we can maybe take away in this conversation today. Okay, we talked a bit already about resources and the hub. What is a question that you wish people would ask you more about your own experience?
I wish people would ask me more about. That's a good question.
that's our challenge today. We're just giving you all the hard questions.
It's okay. I wish people would ask me more about my Tourette's and autism, et cetera, at my job, because a lot of times I have to explain it. Or like, for example, if I'm in an Uber, because I take Uber and Lyft to work, right? A lot of times I would have, I don't have to explain it, but I like to explain it to the drivers, you know? But, you know, it's like, you know, I don't have to explain it, but I do like to explain it, but, you know, if they ask me, I do explain it, but if not, I do explain it sometimes too, you know, so. Especially when my takes and everything are on that for, so.
Can you, for this audience, can you give us what your explanation is and what you sort of expect from people once you've shared that with them?
So when I explain it to them, they're like, oh, that's fine, or, oh, I've heard of that, that's cool. So, you know, there's not a worry at all, so that's what they usually say, so. Yeah, so they're usually very helpful and everything like that too, so.
What do you explain to them? How do you explain your diagnoses?
So usually when I'm like at the checkout and my tick's pretty bad, I say, I have Tourette's. And they're like, okay, I know what that is. Or, well, I don't know that. And then, so I explain it very briefly. So I say, you know, Tourette's is just like sneezing. It's, you have involuntary styles of movements. And okay, so they know, then they understand what it is. So. And also, if you go onto the Tourette Syndrome Association of America's website, Tourette.org, spelled TOURETTE.org. This is a downloadable ID card. You can put your name or someone else's name. I think it's ID card, and or you can Google search ID card for Tourette syndrome, and you can then save it to your phone like an app, sort of, kind of. Then it'll have a QR code for someone that can they can scan.
That's great. We love the resources. I'm sure we'll put that in the chat or something. Maybe not in the chat, but we'll disseminate it somewhere for sure. Okay, what is one misconception about people with autism and disabilities that you would like to see change? Because this is another, I think, call to action for our group, right? What would you want to see people change that they maybe have a misperception about?
So one big misperception about Tourette's, especially, I can never say it, it's the coprolalia, the cursing, involuntary cursing about Tourette's. So there's not a lot of that. There's hardly, not even half of the individuals with Tourette's have coprolalia, like I don't know how to say it right, but involuntary cursing. So I had it for a long time, but now I don't have it. So tics come and go. Tics is the, like I said, is the involuntary movements and sounds, right, that we cannot control. But tics come in all shapes, forms, sizes, etc. They can be here one day, they cannot be here one day. And again, like I said, so my father, when I was younger, we went out to movie theaters, out to restaurants, and out to lunch. And if I did have a tic, back when I was growing up in my teenage years, like I said, my tics took form of very, very loud hooting and shouting noises, very, very loud. But he said, you know, Adam, if you don't feel comfortable here, then we can leave. But I stood up for myself and I said, hey, this is what I have, this is who I am, and I'm gonna stay here, you know, so if someone had a question, I give grimace, etc. So, yeah. And especially for autism, I think some people just may say, oh, you have autism, right? But you may not have autism. Does that make sense?
Describe that a little bit more.
So, for example, so some people may say, oh, this person has autism, but they may not know they have autism. But they may just make an assumption.
Yes, yeah, and that's where I thought you were going with that, and I have definitely witnessed that, probably.
Yeah.
And folks interacting with someone and then coming away from that and going, oh, I think they might be on the spectrum, or, you know, something along those lines. And I think your statement, I mean, that's, I think, really impactful to consider. What do we know for sure, and should we really be making that assumption based on an interaction?
It's like if you don't know someone if you don't know someone speaks Spanish or a different language, and you speak to them in that certain language to begin with, like you say, if I'm a cashier, right, I'll talk to you in Spanish first, but I don't know if you actually speak Spanish or I know you speak English, right? Does that make sense? So
It very much does make sense.
you have to know what language they speak before you speak it to them.
Right. Yeah. Okay, those are great misperceptions. There might be people in the audience who know how to say that word that you pronounced way better than I would pronounce it. I'm not going to try. But I think you got it pretty close,
Close, yeah.
for sure. Okay, what's one, I think you said this a little bit, but I'm gonna let you say it again. What's one small action that you think people can do that can make a big difference and a big impact?
Hugging and smiling, smiling and hugging. Always, always, always. Please, please do it. Please. Everyone needs to be smiling, hugging. I want to see smiles in here. Oh, good.
There we go, there we
Got a
go.
hug right there, awesome. So that's what I love, you know. I mean, like if we can't smile and hug and be laughing, is she LT laughing? That's why LT laughing.
It's because I said hugs with consent.
I was about to ask that, Haley. So have you witnessed, or do you have thoughts about people that don't like to hug? You clearly are a hugger and receive hugs. Well, I'm thinking, based on your input, but.
I do.
About that.
I believe that hugging will change someone's life forever and their day, etc. But if someone who doesn't like to receive a hug, just ask them first, you know. Obviously ask them, hey, is it okay if I give you a side hug or a hug, right? Don't always think, hey, can I just hug them, right? Don't go over to hug them, right? Hey, ask first. Ask if they want to hug. So.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And just, I'll add a little extra element for folks who may be mobility impaired. They may not be able to move in their space the same way away from you if they don't want to be hugged. And so just as a personal aside, I'm probably not the first person that's like, every morning I wake up and I would like to have a hug that morning. But I do encourage it with consent, like you said, Haley. But if you can't, I will give distance so people can recognize too, if I feel that I'm too close to somebody, I'm going to back up. But that's not always available to folks who maybe have those mobility limitations. And so how we approach them, I think is important to have that little ask of, do you mind if I hug you? Or address it a little bit differently. So thank you for sharing that tip too. Okay. This is our last scripted question, at which point we're going to open the questions up to the room and to the Zoom as well. But looking ahead, what gives you hope about the future of inclusion and accessibility in the workplace? What a great question.
So one thing that I hope, and I hate to say this way, but so my store, when I started first working there 10 plus years ago, had like 17 or 18 cash registers with human beings manning them, right? AI has taken over so much that it's ridiculous, but the AI that the health workers use is so much better than, for example, retail workers use, right? So I love AI, for example, for cancer research, for this type of research that y'all do, and everything like that, but the AI that we use, it doesn't help. So for example, someone can come through the self-checkout line, right? And they can get away with for example, a $500 microwave by scanning a small sticker on it, we can't even catch it. So, but for inclusion of accessibility in the workplace, inclusion, I see like that we include more people, such as autism, Down syndrome, people in wheelchairs, you know. For example, for my business, which is called Unique Abilities, I wish we could, one of my hopes and dreams of one day is to actually open a storefront and hire individuals with a unique ability and let them spread their wings and fly, right? So have a storefront, an actual physical storefront, pay them more than minimum wage or sub-minimum wage. And, you know, for example, if someone has really great skills in cashiering and they're in a wheelchair, I want to adjust that for them. If someone has, you know, so that's my thoughts.
I love that hope. Okay, so your dad said, I have to look at your dad for a minute. He was a huge champion for you, and the dreams that you feel like you've already made possible have obviously happened. 10 years in your current role, and started your own company, and now you have these other future dreams. So I think that very much speaks to the opportunity for hope. We've talked about wait, you were going to reference. Yeah.
So these bracelets are. So I have one in particular. So one of my aunts actually came to here, and she was in an accident in a car and is paralyzed from the waist down. But I have one of her bracelets that says spinal cord injury and hashtag pray for it in her name. So.
Absolutely love that, of course, and we were talking about that a little bit as I got to check in with Adam for today's session too. Appreciate that we were here to help her through that journey also. That you're an advocate for everybody,
Yeah.
it seems. I mean, we can get you more bracelets, I'm sure.
Yeah.
We'll find some more. Okay, with that, I do want to ask, I know you're filming, Dad. Do you have anything that you would want to say?
What I will say is if you're a supporter of someone with an issue, is that you should give them the opportunity to advocate for themselves. You know, when we'd be in restaurants or wherever, Adam would have a tic, it'd be loud, it'd be disruptive. Somebody would give him a look, and I said, Adam, why don't you go talk to him and let him know what you've got. So you know what, you've got Tourette's. You're gonna have it the rest of your life, and you're gonna have to learn how to deal with it under your methods to deal with it. And it's your job to educate people, I think.
I just love that. Oh, yes, applause. How empowering, and you described it, Adam, and you came back to it, was, giving him that power and control over it, and then offering the opportunity to educate as part of it, because I think that helps to break down those barriers. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for being here, both of you. Okay, now it's question time for the audience. I will run the microphone around. All right, Adele.
It just helped your cause, Adam, because I heard everyone laughing, because no one in this room is surprised I have a question. My question is, when you go to see a new healthcare provider for something that has nothing to do with autism or Tourette's, like a sinus infection, hashtag teledoc, or go health. But if it's your first interaction with them, what is something that they can do to make your experience more positive and more comfortable?
Sure, so every time I see any doctor, at all, dentist, etc., my tics and my anxiety always flare up. But so for them, like for example, I think it's better or best if they know what I have first. For example, Tourette's, autism, etc. So whenever I fill out the documents you have to fill out first, I think there should be a spot on there. Hey, yes, he has this and that, or does that make sense? There's like a spot, do you have any of this or not? It should be optional. Do you have disabilities, right? Or I think that should be optional to put if you want to put it not. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, do you need accommodations
Exactly.
in your first form?
Yeah, exactly. But it should be optional. Thank you for that question. Thank you.
I'm just scanning the chat here real quick. We'll alternate between some of these questions and comments. A lot of appreciation in this chat, Adam, for you joining us today. And the question here, you're a true blessing. So proud of you and your dad. Kindness and generosity call out. It's just so wonderful. Okay, let's see. Children are so beautiful and innocent. How do you react to a child staring or asking you what is wrong? Or have you ever encountered that?
Yes, I have. So I love kids. I have 2 nieces and 1 nephew, so I'm always very kid friendly, and I just explain to them the same way I explain to an adult. Tourette's is like sneezing, and I can't control it. So that's basically it. So.
And have you seen that help?
Yeah, I have actually. So then a lot of times their mom or their dad will explain it as well to them. So.
Excellent, thank you. Dan, I think I saw your hand up.
First of all, thank you so much for coming and sharing this. I just wanted to do a shout out and say thank you, because sometimes people with disabilities will make their world smaller by, if you had a flare up and you're a little loud, then you would leave or whatever. But I love the fact that you made everyone's world bigger, because not only did you own your own identity and your own power, but you empowered everyone around you by educating them and by making us kinder. So just, that must have taken great courage, but it's with great appreciation. So thank you.
And thank you very much for coming as well today. Appreciate it.
I love that concept of making the world bigger, and when you think about inclusion, I think that's really what it does. Are there any other questions back here? Oh, here we go.
We talked about, some things that